Double Face, a true crime podcast. Please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe and get the notifications when a new episode drops. Please help by leaving a 5-star review. It helps the small podcasters like ourselves. Thank you again. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is Jose, and I'm
Melissa.
sorry.
I was all.
And you are?
I'm Melissa, guys. He wants to take over.
I know, sorry.
That's okay.
Let's get straight to it. So here we go. This story, I wanted to start off with, you know when we're younger, sometimes we'll think of it like, we'll dream of the happily ever after, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're going to get married, I'm going to have
the
kids.
fairy tale.
The fairy tale. And I feel like a lot of people think like that, right? Mm-hmm. We need to get married. We're gonna have kids. I feel like I did when I was younger, and then
when I was younger,
I got a little jaded, and I'm like single,
ready to mingle,
ready to mingle, which is okay for me.
Yeah.
Well, I know that in this case, like many other families, Brett Anderson and his wife Tina, who they had what you can call like an all-American family that lived in National City, California. They lived in a gated community, beautiful. So Brett says it was a very safe environment. Mm-hmm. He felt like he was safe there to raise his kids. Mm-hmm. He also said that he has 2 children. One older one who is Hannah, who is 16 years old, and one younger one who's Ethan, who's 8 years old. So there's like a good age gap. I'll bet you Ethan was like, sometimes they're not planning it.
Yeah.
But, and you know, because of the age gap, most siblings don't get along like that, right? Because she's 16, he's 8. So they were really young. So he was 8 when she was born. But not in this case. Hannah, for some reason, had a really good relationship with her brother. They got along. They were like best friends. Mm-hmm. So it even comes out that Hannah has a best friend who also loved Ethan.
Okay.
And they all 3 like would hang out and do stuff together. Mm-hmm. And of course they'll do stuff without him, but for the most part he was the little brother to them. Yeah. To both of them, which is beautiful. So Hannah was 16 years old and attended Sweetwater High School. She was in gymnastics like your daughter is. Uh-huh. Yeah, cheerleader, like she was her dad, Brett said, she was just my sports one. Like they both were, but she was really just doing it all if she could. But in cheerleading, she just loved to dance. She liked to be just like a typical teenager. She was always on her phone. Always on her phone. But her dad was very like laid back in certain things. Like he said, I knew she was going to be on her phone. That was her thing. She doesn't want to be around us that much. And if she does, she'll do it. But her phone is her limelight to all her best friends or whatever.
Yeah, her lifeline, yeah.
Exactly, her lifeline. Thank you. So the dad's like even says at one point that like even says, hey, because they can communicate back and forth. And she's not your typical like teenager. She actually would text her dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not every day, but like enough. And they would have a cute. He said, I was your typical dad. If they were gonna, like if she was gonna bring boys over, I was like, I'm gonna give them hell. Give him hell. It's a cute old, just a man. And she was always like, no, Dad, I'm embarrassed. Don't do that. And he was like, well, don't bring boys over. You know, kind of guy. He just seems like a really sweetheart. Well, he just seems very genuine. Like there's something bright about when he talks. He just looks like the Santas that like at the mall, you're always like, "Aw."
Yeah, they're so cute.
He's just something sweet about that about him. So Hannah has a best friend, as I mentioned earlier. Her name's Marissa Chavez. Her best friend, they were like 2 peas in a pod. She said, "Oh, when we met, she was loud, I was loud. She was crazy, I was crazy." She said, we just meshed so well. She goes, so we just she goes, we both like to be the center of attention, but it worked.
Yeah.
Like, you know how sometimes like Melissa and I, we're best friends, but I'm the center of attention. She's more like, don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Why are you looking at this way? You know?
I mean, not to that extent.
No, but,
yeah. But it's more like,
more private.
Yeah, I'm more like, I'm going to be behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's in front for the podcast.
I know, right? It's supporting my best friend.
Thank you. Okay, so I also want to mention that he also has a wife at this time. She was a stay-at-home wife. Tina was like, I'm going to do everything, get them to school, get them whatever. And Brett Anderson was like, I'm going to work. I'm going to, make sure that, we have a good life.
Yeah.
And for the most part.
So she's not the mother of these?
Both of them.
Okay.
It's just that Tina plays in this story, she's an important factor, of course, but it's not primarily.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as she's being a stay-at-home mom and as she's taking care of the kids, they're all being normal. Well, in 96, while they were working, while Brett was working in telecom, he met a man named James Lee DiMaggio. They called him Jim because that's, people give nicknames to everybody. Yes. But Jim, he was funny. He was always happy, always led a helping hand. And this is so true in this family. You know how they say that it takes a village, right? Like right now, before we got on, she's calling our other best friend. Can you pick her up? Oh, man, never mind. It's at 9 o'clock. Or okay with anything. So it takes a village to raise these children.
It does. It really does.
And I think you're one of those that says it all. Like you can. Like your mom is your biggest supporter and she's always there for you.
Anytime I need help, she's there.
Because it takes, and right now, like you're calling your best friend, it takes a lot. Well, Jim was one of those guys that was always like, they would start doing things together. So they invited him over and one thing after the other, that he just became Uncle Jim. Yeah. Uncle Jim took him to go fishing. He would go play sports with them. He'd take them to their sports games. He'd pick them up from the sports games. Like, he was Uncle Jim, and Jim did that shit, honey. He did it all. Like, whenever they needed help, he helped a lot. Because for the most part, when Brett was, working and having to do all this stuff, sometimes he would just step in and say, I'll go get them. Yeah. I'll help out. Well, one day, Hannah and Marissa were bored, and you know how any other teenagers, I'm bored, comes out of their mouths. Hijo, if we had a penny.
For every time. I'd be like, oh, you can clean the house.
I remember telling her daughter one time we were there, she says, I'm bored. I'll start cleaning. Yeah. Now we're at that age. We're old.
Hey, I'm that parent.
Yeah.
Turning into my parent.
Well, one weekend, and they did this often they were like, well, what do we do? Well, Uncle Jim had a house, which is like an hour away from theirs in California. It's a good hour. It's a 2-story, nice, low, not too deserted because there's neighbors around there, but it was like there's a little lake behind his house. So it's a nice location. So of course, Hannah and Marissa were like, well, let's go to ask our Uncle Jim if he'll pick us up, because they also need a ride over there too. Yeah. So she calls Uncle Jim and she's like, hey, can we go spend the weekend over there? And he's like, yes, of course, come, I'll pick you up. Because he was doing the thing, honey. And so he goes and he gets them, right? And he would let them do whatever they wanted. He goes, this is where I don't remember, this one I didn't like. He would let the girls come over, and he would also let them have parties, but primarily just girls. Like guys are not going to come over. Like that's where he was like, no, just girls. You can have your party, but not guys. But for the most part, they would have parties where the girls would be downstairs and they would party and have fun. And Jim, she said, Hannah mentioned at one point, to her dad and to her mom, like, oh yeah, he was there. He was like 10 minutes, but then he would go upstairs. Every time he would just go upstairs. He would leave them alone all night. Hannah and Marissa would be downstairs. She said smoking. Marissa said we would smoke because Marissa's in this interview. And Marissa says, oh yeah, we would smoke, we'd be down there partying, dancing, music all day, all night. I don't know about you, but that seems a little weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Jim's a little too flexible. Mm-hmm. Well, so anyway, they would be there all weekend, right? And so one day, Brett Anderson, he lost his job, where you start realizing, oh, there's trouble here because he's just trying to support and pay the house.
Yeah.
He lives in a gated community, so that, times are tough. They're going to start getting expensive. Mm-hmm. Brett said, he even financially helped us, like pay the mortgage one time. Like
this is Uncle Jim.
This is Uncle Jim.
Helping.
Yes, helping. Because Uncle Jim's really, he's trying to do everything he can. So with his payments. So he was given the opportunity, Brett gets an opportunity where he's like, hey, mind you, they're in California. He gets an opportunity in Tennessee. But he's like, no, I don't think I should take it. It's too far. I'm not going to see the kids. And one thing Brett gives off is, how some people, you see this mostly in women. Some women just step up to the plate and they're sometimes just meant to be a parent. Mm-hmm. Well, Brett gave that impression. Like, he was happy just being a dad and a husband. That's it. He didn't look like he needed extra anything. He didn't need like a limelight. He didn't need any of that. Just let him be a dad, and that's good enough. He's just very happy to be. So Jim tells his best friend Brett, hey, you should take the job. I know it's far. I know you kind of need to think about this, but honestly, how are you not gonna pay these bills? Yeah. And Brett even says, it's a really good job. He said, so the only reason I took it is because Jim convinced me. So he says, okay, I'm going to take it. He goes, don't worry. I will step up. Let me know if you need anything. I'll help Tina along the way, get the kids from school. You're not alone. Yeah. Just go do that. You're not alone. So Brett says, okay, I'm going to take it because Jim convinced me. Mm-hmm. And I guess from hearing that from somebody is reassuring, right? From somebody you've known for a very long time. Like if you told me that, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm scared.
Like when I was trying to convince you to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay, here we are. Sorry. Now I have a big ass house, okay? So, of course, this is where Brett starts. And this, if I haven't said, is the case of Hannah Anderson. And I didn't want to throw it in the very beginning because I wanted you to know who they were along the way. So Brett, as he's in Tennessee, he says, my daughter does, even though she's in cheerleading camp, she's busy in the teenager, she would still text me every other day. And she'd be like, hey, Dad, blah, 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 this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. She responded to him. Yeah. And she would say, hey, Dad, Brett says, hey, Dad, Hannah texted him and said, I'm gonna get a belly button pierce. He said, the hell you are? Mm-hmm. Like, no, the hell you're not. Yeah. And he said, but then my wife Tina called me and was like, just let her. Just let her, honey. It's all right. Just let her get it out of our system. And he said,
she's 16?
She's 16. And he was like, okay, I guess.
He's like, well, dang.
Not, I'm sure with these two girls on the same side, he had no chance in there. Nope. He had no chance. So he just kind of giggles as he's retelling the story, right? Mm-hmm. And you can tell that, like from that perspective, that he was just easygoing. Like he's of course gonna put his foot down when he needs to, but in this one, he's like, just let her have it. Yeah. So at the same time, Hannah and Marissa are hanging out, and they're more and more hanging out at Jim's property. Mm-hmm. What teenager wouldn't want that? A place you can do whatever you want and have no rules. Mm-hmm. This is the one thing that Marissa, her best friend, said. I found it really interesting. He says, because he would buy us food. He would get us drinks, and she said we would even smoke, but she didn't say what she smoked. They just said smoked. I still think cigarettes was too much even to offer, but we don't know if it was anything else.
So, and he was offering this, or they
No,
were just getting it?
they were requesting, and he's like, here.
Probably then.
No, he was like, here you go.
Like, no, it was probably cigarettes. I don't think it was anything else.
Well, I mean, he's just giving it anyway. To me, it sounds like there's no adult supervision.
No.
Even though there's an actual adult who's in his 40s, by the way, there's no adult there. Because it almost seems like there's 3 teenagers there.
And it was just always them two, and then whenever they went invite friends at his home.
Okay. You know how I told you like earlier, he would the only time he would actually put his foot down is when she wanted to bring guys over, and so he was like, no, just you girls, have fun. I'll go upstairs. I said, okay. The best friend Marissa tells, as she's relating the story, she says, hey, this was a little weird. You know how he would go upstairs? They couldn't go upstairs.
So they would have to sleep downstairs?
Well, I'm sure there was a room downstairs.
Okay.
But one time, you know how teenagers are. They're going to try to
curious.
push.
Yes.
And they're going to push their buttons as much as you can.
Yes.
One time, Marissa said that Hannah and her were walking upstairs, and Jim heard, and he went, where are you going? I told you you're not allowed up here. You're not allowed up here. Get back downstairs. Both of you. And Marissa's like, this is the first time he's ever like stepped out of line, where we could hear his adult voice, kind of situation. And they were like, okay. He's all, you're not allowed up here. You can be down here. That instinctually, besides the other that he's letting teenagers do whatever they want, that red flag, to me, something told me, and we're never going to find the answer to this, what was up there. But something tells me that he was either had holes on the ceiling,
or he's watching
with cameras. You know how little cameras are nowadays. Like you can hide them anywhere.
Yeah.
But to me, he was watching.
That's what it feels like to me. Yeah.
It feels there's something where you like to watch people. What is that called? Do you know the name of it?
No, other than people watching, that's all I...
No. There's something that's an arousal that people do. Okay. That is, they're stimulated by watching.
Okay, gotcha.
Voyeurism.
Okay.
He gave me voyeurism immediately.
Okay.
We're never going to find out. You'll never know, but that's the impression that I get. Fast forward to one of the days after Hannah had gone to one of her cheer practices or whatever it is, and he went to go pick up Marissa and Hannah. And they were just listening to music, and Marissa says, this cute song came out, this slow song, and we were like, we got in the moment. And you know how sometimes some songs get in your feels, Tiny?
Exactly.
Well, that's what Marissa was saying. It was in our feels, and we started talking about boys. They're getting comfortable because they're explaining it.
Yeah.
And she says one time the song came out, and we were just listening to it, and we were just like, what about this? And who do you have a crush on? And Hannah says, oh, I have a crush on so-and-so. And Jim interrupts and says, as he's driving, he goes, not to be creepy, but if I was your age, I would date you.
That's creepy just saying it.
This is, I don't know if you remembered what I just said. This is Uncle Jim. And by uncle, I hope you hear those air quotes. He's telling her, but not creepy.
He's 40 and a family friend telling a 16-year-old this.
Minor. He even states, I don't mean it to be creepy. I have a crush on you.
Oh my God. I
have a crush on you. Marissa immediately says, it got quiet. She goes, I know Hannah, and whenever she gets quiet like that, she's uncomfortable because she's thinking. She says, and she's loud. She goes, so I know that at that moment we were both uncomfortable. So of course, after that interaction, they actually stopped responding to Jim. I didn't know this, they had communication through Messenger as well. So they would all three talk through that. Like if he was a teenager.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I don't communicate with, with my parents like that.
I don't think so either.
Not like, oh, I have a crush on so and so, mom or uncle, whatever. Oh.
No, I barely get that, and I'm her peer, and her best friend. But to me, it's just one of those things that I was like, oh, there's your other red flag. Like he's just little by little throwing it at, like letting you know, leaving a little crumb behind. Yes,
getting you in.
Exactly. I feel like this was his grooming.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so anyway, the communication went obsolete after that. I mean, they were both like, I don't want to talk to him. He makes us uncomfortable. That was really creepy to hear. I don't want to do this. So he doesn't get a response, and he's like sending her messages. Hey, I miss you and our relationship. That's an odd thing to say, right?
It is.
And our relationship. So you mean all those times that you were picking her up, taking her, you thought that was your girlfriend?
Exactly.
And that's what it feels like.
Yes, because I was just like,
you belong to me.
Oh God.
And not hearing from her, I think, started the next step of what he was, going to get to.
Yeah.
So on the early Monday of August 3rd, 2013, it was around 2 a.m. and Hannah was at cheer camp, and Marissa, so Hannah went to cheer camp for about a week and a half.
Okay.
Marissa was texting back and forth with her best friend, of course.
Yes.
Hey, I miss you. I haven't seen you in almost 2 weeks. When are you going to come back? And she's like, girl, I'll get back tomorrow. Don't worry. As soon as I get back, we'll have lunch and we'll catch up.
Yes.
And Marissa's like, okay, see you then. Hannah says, okay, I love you, blah, blah, blah. She goes, and that's the last thing I've heard from Hannah. That's it. She says, and the next day, Marissa hadn't heard from her and from Hannah, and she's like, well, that's weird. We're supposed to have a date. And you know how a girl in her teens, she's probably ditching me.
Yeah.
She's probably ditching me for some other friends. I can't believe she's gonna, same typical. I think I thought that too, honey. About oh, you is not gonna be my friend. So later that afternoon, Marissa starts getting messages about, hey, did you see? Like she's at home. Marissa's just minding her business, and she's like, hey, did you see that on the house? Turn on the news. And this is friends. The other friends are sending
sending her messages.
Mind you, at this point, Hannah hasn't sent any response back to Marissa. Turn on the news. Look. Finally, Marissa walks to and turns it on, and immediately it says there is a fire.
Oh God.
And they're like, wait a minute. That's Jim's house. That's Uncle Jim's house. What the And so at the same time in Tennessee, Brett Anderson is also getting messages. And he's like, hey, what's going on? Did you see that Jim's house is on fire? And they're like, what? So he goes online and he starts looking it up. And sure enough, he sees that the fire is going. And he goes, oh my God, I hope Jim's okay. So he immediately starts texting Jim. Hey, Jim, is everything okay? Are you okay? I know the house is on fire. What's going on? Or what's happening? Nothing.
Is it similar to suicide?
And so automatically you're not hearing anything from both Hannah. So he starts sending his wife a message. Hey, what did you hear about Jim? Is everything okay? Silence. So then he starts messaging Hannah. Hey, sweetie, is everything okay? I heard Uncle Jim's house is burning. It's burned down. Nothing. And he's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why is no one responding? Not Jim, not Hannah, not Tina, no one. I don't know if the 8-year-old son had a phone, but I'm sure he did, but no one is responding. So what they're doing at the same time, Brett, is he's trying to get a hold of anyone at this point. And so he's watching the news, Marissa's watching the news, and they're watching everything unfold under there. And they're both like, it's burning down to ashes. I mean, to the crisp. That's how bad it's getting. So because they're not getting a response, he's getting worried, of course. And while they're trying to contain the fire, officers / firemen have noticed that, so the majority of the house has already gone down in flames. But in the garage, which was not too far, they noticed that there's a body of a woman. So now the news is picking it up.
Yeah.
Dead woman found. And they're like, what? What do you mean dead woman? And is a woman or is it a woman or is it a young girl? Yeah. Now we're talking about, is it Hannah or is it the mother? Like, who is it? And they're not really getting it. So Detective Troy Dugall states that he walks towards the body when finally everything's already gone down and they're trying to get into like the flames down. He says, immediately I realized that it's a homicide. He said, because so they could see that there's legs sticking out and it was zip tied. But they couldn't see the body. So because they were able to contain some of the garage, they pull it back and they realize that it's a woman. And so Detective Gall says, well, I don't really know who it is. He says, but there's a car right there. Right outside of the house. There's a car, pull that up. Because the car hasn't gone down in flames, hasn't been touched. You can clearly see in the photo that from there, it's a white car. White like SUV, something like that. So they pull it up and sure enough, it's a woman. Her name's Tina. Well, her name's Christina, but they're saying Tina Anderson. It belongs, they're like, send us a photo. So they see the photo and automatically they say, that's her. And next to her is a dog who was also murdered, who was in a sleeping bag. And that was the Anderson dog family. So that was a family dog. So now we find wife, we find dog. Dog will attack.
Yes.
So you got to get rid of the dog. Who's the adult?
Tina.
So immediately, they didn't skip a beat. They're calling Brett at the same time and they're like, hey, this is what we found. I'm so sorry, but you got to get over here now. Yeah. And they knew it wasn't him because how is he going to go from there to there? And
Tennessee, right?
How is he going to burn down the house and go from Tennessee and come back?
Yeah.
There's no way. So they go back and they're like, okay, we found Christina, we found the dog. Now where are the two kids? Where is Hannah and where is Ethan? We don't know. Revealed later on that Tina's mouth, this is so weird. Her mouth, her neck were bound by duct tape. And she was struck in the head by a blunt object at least 12 times. So you knew that she was not the target, but she was in the way.
Yeah, I was going to say in the way.
So 12 times. He hit her 12 times. Had already done the same thing to the dog. And then this happened. So now we're having to realize that Jim must have murdered, right? At least Tina. We're assuming because that's his house.
That's his house, yeah.
Where is he?
Yeah.
Nobody can find him either. I know you're wondering, how did the whole family get to Jim's house, right? Because that doesn't make any sense.
Because she was at a cheer camp. Obviously, they went together to pick up Hannah. But I'm like, where does that lead them to the house?
Correct. And not only on top of it, from where the Andersons family to Jim's house is an hour away.
Oh, okay.
So you can't just get to his house with no reason, right? So, Detective Dugall states that his house was in foreclosure because that's how he lured Christina, Hannah, and Ethan over. So one day, Jim tells Tina, he says, hey, Tina, my house is on foreclosure. I am so sorry. I can't afford to keep the house going. So I have to move out soon. So as one last hurrah, come over. Let's have a family day. I know that Brett can't come, but it's okay. Let's just have fun. Bring the dog. Bring everybody. Bring them all over here, and then let's just have a family cookout and let the kids just roam around and have fun. Okay, yes, of course, Brett. Of course. So, mind you, at the same time this is going on, Tina doesn't suspect anything because that's Uncle Jim.
Yeah.
So he states that he was from there. Detective DeGaulle said, no, there's absolutely no foreclosure. We looked it up. That was his way to lure them over there. Why? Because Hannah hadn't been responding. So how was he going to get all of them over there? Because he knew Hannah wasn't going to come over anymore.
Yeah.
So, and he must have known that Hannah hadn't said anything either, because
either Tina didn't say nothing and neither did the father. So
correct.
Yeah.
And because Tina jumped on top of the invitation and was like, yes, of course, we'll do it there. If that's all we could do, I love you. Yes, you're our family. We'll go and celebrate with you. As they're going through the rubble, the police haven't start researching because they really don't have anything else to work with. It's all gone down in flames. They're now that everything's contained, they're like, let's go see if we can find anything else. As they searched, they came across a small body. They tried explaining to Brett that they still don't know who it is, but Brett said, no, I knew immediately. That was my son. I knew that was Ethan. And he goes, come on, man, that's my son. And he goes, we don't know that. We don't know if this is your son or somebody else. So we can't do that. We can't go straight into conclusions.
Yeah.
But Brett says he just collapses.
Yeah.
He just collapses in pain and cries and cries. He said, you just know.
Yeah.
But Detective DeGaulle said, no, sorry. You can't just say that. We don't know if that's true. So what we're sending out is the very first time that they've ever done a FEMA Amber Alert. Do you know what that is?
No.
I knew you weren't going to know because I didn't know as well. We've heard of Amber Alerts.
Yes.
But there's a FEMA Alert. So a FEMA Alert is an imminent threat to the safety or a life.
To anybody?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and the FEMA Alert was sent out immediately. I mean, they posted that on, and they were the very first ones to ever put out a FEMA Alert. And it had both Hannah and her brother Ethan. And they looked just so precious, cute, little adorable, because they're still in their teens and one's 8. Adorable. He was wearing his little football gear. That's how I know. It's because sorry.
I mean, they're all innocent, but
yes, but they're so young.
Yeah.
So the alert goes out and they're immediately out there. At the same time, it was later revealed that Ethan's body was one of the one that was found in the rubble, and that the police continued the search through the rubble, and that they find more clues. That they said, we tried to find more clues, and when they went, because he had an attic that crumbled, right? But they were able to find something in that attic that he had left behind, that they noticed, okay, this is the attic part of it. So this still had something left. And what they found was that they found boxes, like I guess Amazon boxes or boxes that he had purchased. And one was a knife. One of them were handcuffs, and no knife and no handcuff to be found.
Okay, I was about to say that.
So they knew that immediately he's the one that we're trying to find.
Yeah.
And so automatically they're like, okay, he's the one we need to get him, because why does he have these items here in this house? We found 2 bodies. No, he's got to be. Where's Hannah? So as they found 5 days later, after the fire and alert went out for Cascades, because it's been 5 days since she's missing. She's missing because they found Ethan.
And so is he right at this point? Jim?
They haven't found Jim.
Yeah, so
meaning they're linking it together. Correct. So from the distance of where in California to Cascade, Idaho, which is north of National City where they lived, 16 hours away, Idaho State Trooper discovers the DiMaggio's car parked and covered with leaves and branches. The river, they call that, there's a place called the River of No Return.
Oh, wow.
Which is so ominous. And it is so ominous and so true because you'll see later on what I mean. So by this point that the police that went to Jim, they noticed that Jim's a planner, right? You could tell Jim's a planner. He set up the fire to go off with a timer. Yeah, which would give him a head start. So now that Jim and Hannah don't have a car, because remember, they hit it.
Yes.
And they're on foot. If Hannah's still alive, they don't know this. But they know that they covered the car for a reason, and now they're on foot. Let me tell you, this is not a location you're going to be on foot.
Okay.
This is not a hiking spot. This is a very treacherous location. You shouldn't be walking in this area. So the detective gets a tip that two people were horseback riding in the area, and they came across a man, what looked like his daughter, because the man said, "Oh, that's my daughter," but she also looked young enough, right? So they said that they were like, "Well, it's a little weird," because they also said, "This is weird. It's a weird spot for people to be hiking." Well, they just said it just looked weird also because the young girl didn't look up at us. We said something and she just kept her head down. On top of it, they were like, he looked like he was ready to like hike. He shouldn't be hiking here, but he looked like he was dressed because he had the right shoes, the right pants, the right shirt. He had a backpack. He had everything. While they came up, he has his right hand to his right back pocket because he's holding on to the gun at the same time. So they also found it weird was that they were like, the girl wasn't ready to go backpacking. She's wearing sweatpants, a t-shirt, and is holding on to this is so weird, a tabby cat. A gato.
Oh, a cat.
Meow meow.
An actual cat.
Meow.
Oh, okay.
A cat.
I thought it was like a backpack cat or something.
She's holding on to a cat.
What in the world?
Yes. So 1 week after Hannah's kidnapping, because it's already been, I told you 5 days, now it's already getting close to the 7 mark day. FBI surveillance spots a male and a female near the Moorhead Lake. So what they did is that they were like, we know he's going north. We know that the car's parked in this area. They can't hike it.
Yeah.
They're like, we need to find a spot that they've been located. And sure enough, they were located up there. They said that they're like in the Moorhead Lake area.
Okay.
For those of you that aren't sure, it's like a 31-hour hiking. 31 hours hiking because you can't travel by cars. You remember the cars behind?
Yeah.
Well, it has to all be by foot or some other way. So what the FBI realized that they would have to do is to land a helicopter, and then they would have to hike 2 hours and try to find them in that area. I know.
That's a lot.
It's intense, but they're moving fairly quickly.
Yeah.
As the rescue team approaches, they spot a young woman waving a piece of fabric. And she's like this, just back and forth, left to right, up in the air. Like this. And it looks like a flag that she's waving. Yeah. Which is, to me, it's weird because when they show it on camera, if I saw that, I'd be like, oh, it's nothing. But because, they're professionals, they know what they're doing. They were like, that's a woman waving a flag. So it almost blends in with the background. But anyway. But at 5:21 p.m., FBI agents secretly surround Hannah and Jim's location. So they had gotten dropped off somewhere and started roaming and surrounded him without them knowing. Not even Hannah knew. Yeah. Luckily, Hannah survives the ordeal, right? I know. We're not going to see a lot of these, but she does survive. And now this is her perspective of what happened.
Oh my God. Okay.
That day.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So now she states that on August 3rd, she begs her mom because her mom had just gotten a call from Jim and said, let's have a one last hurrah. Let's have a party here.
Yeah.
No, Mom, I don't want to go. Please, Mom, I don't want to go. Let me just go to my best friend's Marissa. No, Mom, I don't want to go. Please. She said, I begged and begged and begged her. Please, I don't want to go to Jim's. I just want to be at a blah, blah. She's like, please. And I guess Tina thought, oh, she's just being an annoying teenager.
Yeah.
But it was because Hannah didn't want to be around him. And then on top of it, I'm sure that was her instincts telling her too. But her mom kept saying, no, this is a family thing. We're going to spend this is a family weekend. We're not doing anything else. We're going to do this and that's it. So he says, okay. So Marissa, she doesn't really want to go, but she has no choice. So she then tells her best friend, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'll see you later. I'm just going to do a couple of things. We're going to go over there, whatever. It is what it is. Well, Ethan that day gets dropped off at football practice.
Yes.
And then she gets dropped off at her cheerleading practice. And after those two, afterwards, the mom's like, hey, I'm going to go and pick you up. He's like, oh, but is it you or Jim? And she's like, no, well, one of us will pick you up.
Yeah. Oh,
she says, well, that same day, once I get out of practice, she's wearing her sweatpants, a t-shirt, something simple. And she's like, I saw Jim pull up and my heart like stopped. She said, I was like, I immediately got uncomfortable, but she said, it's just 1 hour drive all the way to his house. I can put up with it. And then I'll just see my mom and Ethan and we'll be fine. So they make it all the way to, she said, I was uncomfortable. He was trying to talk to me, have small talk, but he knew immediately. So she says, we finally get to we get to Jim's house. She says, she's like, hey, where's my mom? Where's their car?
Yeah.
She immediately doesn't see the car, which is weird. Doesn't see the car. And so she's like, he says, no, she's at the neighbor's. It's okay. Keep going. So she then walks inside the house and immediately starts seeing that there is something odd. Wait, if my mom's not here, she walks in, goes to the living room, makes it to the dining room, and notice that on the dining room, her mom's items inside of her purse are tossed all over. So her purse is there and all her items are there. And she immediately says, wait, turns around and Jim has handcuffs. He's all, put these on. Put these on. And she's like, okay. She says, I'm uncomfortable. Yes, I don't know what to do, but she says that it is what it is. So then she sits down on the sofa and he says to her, hey, I just can't take this anymore. I'm losing my house and I can't do this. So he's keeping up the charade and he's telling her, you know what? Let's play a game. Have you ever played Russian roulette? And she's like, what? He's all, I can't handle this anymore. He goes, if this doesn't go off, if this goes off, you go to get to live your life. Just go live your life. And puts his gun in his mouth. He waits and he clicks. And nothing happens. And then he says, okay, your turn. So he points the gun at her directly into her temple area. He says, okay, your turn. And she's crying and begging, please stop, Jim. Oh, I don't want to play this game. Please, Jim, stop. And she says, I'm trying to keep all my composure. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to stay calm. I'm trying not to panic. But she's like, Jim, I don't want to play this game. Please, I don't want to play this game. And he finally does it and click. It doesn't go off. And automatically he's like, okay, well, let's just, you know what? Just go with me and we're just going to go for a ride. We'll go to the woods. He's almost convincing her like if there's Nothing's wrong. The family's okay. But what she doesn't know, because she asked about the mom, she's like, well, okay, I have your mom in the garage and your dog. They're just in the garage. They're fine, but they're in there. At the same time, upstairs. And she's like, I knew that was Ethan. And she's like, Ethan, are you okay? Ethan! And she wants to panic because she can hear his voice.
Yeah.
She said, Jim gets up, he walks upstairs.
Oh my God.
Doesn't know what happens and walks right back down. She goes, and then I no longer heard Ethan anymore. She goes, it was just silence. Before he was like, and then it's just nothing. Because he had went up there and beat him. He also bashed his head.
He's 8 years old.
8 years old. And he had stuffed something in his mouth. And he had bashed his head and then came down, murdered him, and came back. So now she said, she was like, I started acting like I was sick because she was trying her best. She didn't know what to do. She was panicking. She was like, what do I say? She's like, I don't feel good. My throat hurts. She was saying something, anything for him to feel sympathy that this motherfucker wanted her to feel.
Yeah.
So he then gives her a pill and says, why don't you take this? It's just like a Tylenol. So she takes it. She says, I don't remember anything after that until the car ride. So from the car ride, he's already had driven hours. She came out of it for a second. She said but by that time they were already in the car, and it was already nighttime. Even if he had stopped, she didn't know.
Yeah.
Which he had to, because where's he getting gas from? Because he planned it, I'm sure he had gas in the car.
I mean, he could have.
But he didn't explain. But one other thing is that she said when she woke up, she turned around and she noticed that there was a ton of Red Bull in the backseat.
Oh.
So he was like downing him to stay up, because it's a long ride, 1,000 miles. So she said, I just couldn't handle it, and I couldn't help it, but I fell back to sleep. She goes, when she woke up again, she asked, where's my family? Where's my family? He's like, they're fine. They're over there. They're at home. You know, they're okay. So he's still thinking, he's still convincing her that they're alive. She said, had I known that anything was wrong with them, I would have fought. I would have fought and said, I'm not going to, because she says, I did exactly what he did because I didn't want them to harm anyone. Not my family back home, anyone. So because I did, I just kept going along with it.
Yeah.
When they got to Idaho, they came across a little winding road, and they saw a woman, and the woman was coming towards them. And Jim says, look, you say anything, I'm going to murder her. So he's making her feel guilty. So the woman pulls up to them, and she tells him, hey, are you guys okay? Because they know they're in the wrong spot. You know, nobody comes up this road.
Yeah.
Because this is a winding road, you don't belong here. A local knows where you should and shouldn't be. And he says, oh, yeah, we're a little lost. She goes, oh, okay, well, that way's the one you want to. Oh, okay, thank you. So she goes about her way, and they don't think anything of it. She said, while they finally made it to that little remote location, he immediately gets her off and tells her, okay, now help me get the branches, cover the car. And she's like, wait, why are we covering the car? If everybody's okay, why are we covering the car? You haven't done anything. You just kidnapped me. Why are you covering the car? She knew instinctually right there and then that something was off.
Yeah.
As they finished hiding the car, they started on their hike. Mind you, one thing they didn't mention was that Hannah was wearing sweatpants, wasn't wearing a t-shirt. She had a backpack of her own as well that he had gotten everything ready for. Yes, she was holding on to a cat, but one thing she also didn't have was her own pair of shoes. He gave her Converse shoes that were his size, so they were too big for her.
For footprints?
No, I'm saying she has to hike with his shoes on.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why not hers?
Well, he didn't plan that out.
Okay. It's a weird. Yeah, that's weird.
It's a weird thing that he didn't.
She's gonna look off, is what I'm saying, and you're trying not to.
He looks the part. She doesn't.
She does exactly.
Why not get her ready? Because one thing Hannah said that on the drive, she says, I wasn't peed or pooped on. Where did I pee? Wearing the same clothes, but where did I pee? They came across 2 people that were horseback riding.
Yes.
Remember the horse? Okay. Well, Hannah said, the only reason I didn't look up at them is because Jim had saw them coming and said, if you even do anything, I'm murdering both of them. And then I'll leave you here alone. So she said, I didn't look up at them because I didn't want them to hurt. I didn't want Jim to hurt them. And so he said, yes, they spoke to us. They were like, nobody hikes here. Nobody hikes here. Why are you guys hiking? He goes, oh, we're just, trying it out. He goes, are you sure? He goes, we're horseback riding because it's not safe to hike in.
Yeah.
And Jim's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And he just keeps going. He said they found it a little odd, but Hannah just kept going. So as they're making their way up through another treacherous trail and whatever it is, Hannah said, at one point after so many hours, my knee locks. She goes, and it locks so tight that I fall.
Yeah.
I collapsed to the floor. She goes, and I am screeching in pain.
Yeah.
She says, she goes, the pain was so bad that I couldn't move anymore. He said he tried to lift her, but she was like, no, I can't go anywhere. Well, he says, fine, you know what? I'm lost anyway. He says, I'm lost. Why don't we do this? Let me signal for help. He goes, and then once somebody arrives to help us, I'll take their horse and we'll go back. What a fucking, sounds like a child, right?
Yes.
Like a teenage child, like a stupid idea after stupid idea. No offense if you're a teacher. But so he starts pitching a tent and she has nowhere to go but to sit there. Well, one thing that he does have in his backpack is a book, How to Survive in the Woods.
Okay.
So she reads it. So she starts reading it because she has nothing else to do. Yeah. Correct. And he's building a fire. He's going on with the fire. He's trying to get smoke signals. Nothing's working. Well, she said, I had just read a while. She says, I saw how to send a distress signal.
Okay.
So he was trying to fire. It wasn't working. At the same time, she says, I see a plane. It's a small plane. She says, she picks up the flag and she's like this. Waving it left and right. And as she's waving it, they saw her.
Yes.
And that's when she said, but one thing that she says, oh, and then they flew away, so I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
So hours went by, I didn't think anything. She said, well, there's a distress signal. The only way to get their attention is by getting them to send 3 shots. Send 3 shots in the air. So it took a lot of convincing for him to say yes. But so he has a gun. He lifts it up in the air. Puts it lower. As he goes, you hear pop, 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 pop. Shoots and he falls to the floor. What she didn't know was by that time
they were surrounded.
And so they shoot him dead. So quickly they grab Hannah. They take her immediately away. And she's like, well, what? She's trying to say, like, how's my family? They're not answering anything. They get her straight onto the plane. They take her straight to the hospital. And as she gets to the hospital, that's when they tell her, I'm so sorry, but your mother and your brother are now dead. And your dad's on his way. But one thing that she said is, I felt so guilty, is that they also told her Jim died. Because she was like, what happened? She saw, I wouldn't have survived this life if I knew that he was alive.
Yeah.
She says, I wouldn't have been able to. Now that I know he's dead, I can try to live. She said, when they finally got the dad there, Brett walks into the room and he tells her, baby, sweet. And she's like, can you get away from me? Can you get out of the room? because she said, now I couldn't trust a man. No man, not even her father.
Yeah.
She says, I felt really guilty. She goes, as soon as he walked out, I started crying. I went through the emotions, but she's going through, she's having to deal with this, and she's 16 years old. If that's the smallest thing, who cares? The dad said, I just cried. I cried. I just wanted to hold my baby, and that's it. But I couldn't, because
he at now this point knew the information, right? Well, the information that his wife had passed, and so
he knew along the way before she did.
Okay.
That it was Jim.
That's why he wanted to hold on to her.
Correct.
Yeah. Besides everything that happened too.
Exactly. But he understood that why she needed that space. It hurt his heart, but it is what it is. But finally, as the story's unveiling and it's coming across, she's an older woman now. Not older, but she is just a mature woman now. And
because this happened in 2013. So she's 20.
She's a beautiful girl now. Yeah, she's beautiful, but you could tell that she's dealing with her own demons.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And so the other thing is that finally she gets her phone, and when she's in her own silence, she finally responds. Because at the same time, one thing that I didn't mention was Marissa didn't give up hope with her. Yeah. You're alive. I miss you. Text me back. I can't wait to hear from you. I know you're alive. I know you're alive. You got to get back. You got to text me. Finally, Hannah responds and says, I'm okay. I'm alive. And she's like, come. Whenever you have a chance, I can't wait to see you. And she said, when she finally got home, it took a couple of minutes, but they finally met up at a restaurant and they just ate potato skins. And Marissa was like, you don't have to tell me anything. She says, I just want to hold you. And she held her and cried. And then she says, oh, I don't know how long I held her for. She said, but it felt like eternity. Yeah. And then Hannah said, I have to talk to somebody. And she told her the whole story. And she's like, I just feel horrible. But she's a strong woman now. And that is a story of Hannah Anderson and how she survived. I know.
I'm so glad.
And we don't get to hear a lot of stories of survivors. And this one was a beautiful story. So I know this one was a little heavy, but thank you for listening. Thank you for spending time with us. Dame un besito. We gotta go.
Bye, guys.
Bye.